Correct, Chibaba. So, since today is May 18th, and so close to the day when Mehera Irani reunited with her beloved Meher Baba, I thought we'd just do a program, of course, informally, just on memories of Mehera. If anyone like has any songs they want to sing that you liked, or any stories of meeting Mehera, or even any stories for all who didn't meet Mehera that have like read in books, or maybe jokes that Mehera liked, or just memories or what it was like to be with Mehera and whatnot. Um, so it'll be like an open sharing. I would like to start off by sharing a poem I found recently that Mehera actually wrote, and I never knew she wrote any poems, but it was neat to find this poem. I found this on social media on Facebook, and this poem also has a connection to Myrtle Beach. It says the following poem was written by Mehera at Baba's request and was read out before him to all present at the Sahabas in Myrtle Beach in 1956. May I always be blessed by your company. I want your company at every moment of my life, and only in your cause should this body be sacrificed. O you, the infinite one, have infinite attributes. Do not be indifferent to me. O Meher Baba, Guru of Gurus, I ask nothing but this last wish. I don't ask for God, or God realization, or powers, or authority. My only wish is please don't be indifferent to me. And like I said, that poem was read to Baba in Myrtle Beach in 1956. My guess is probably Mehera maybe sent that in a telegram, maybe from India, because I believe she wasn't on that Myrtle Beach trip in 1956. But what a poem. Would anyone like to share anything about Mehera? Not all at once here. Otherwise I'll call on some people. Tony, you spent time with Mehera. Why don't you start us off, Tony? Or actually, you know what? I see Josh raise his hand. Okay, Josh, you're a good student. You get an A plus a little sticker for that. Good job. All right, Josh. It's all yours.
Yeah, I think the raising hands isn't necessarily pushing them to the front. I think is anyway, that's a Zoom thing. But yeah, something really interesting is like in God Speaks, like where I was reading, like, oh my God, so many, it's going on. It's like 56 people doing this and 112 people doing that. It's like all this weird homeworky stuff. But yeah, like Mehera isn't sort of like mentioned at all, but there's like sort of like, it's really interesting because like she has this really big role, like basically she's like the most the pinnacle saint human for everyone to aspire to. She's almost like the role model. And so it's very, I don't know, she's just very mysterious and interesting. And that's just what I was wanting to share, that but there's a lot more going on with her than I think is beneath the surface, but then is on top of the surface, is what I'm going to say.
So true. And like she was Baba's counterpart as well, like, which is pretty
Yeah.
awesome and pretty amazing. I also was just thinking about this recently, like, you know how like with Baba, like with the Avatar, like they say people say like Baba dropped his body. Then like with Mehera, like, and I don't know, that's like, since she was also like a counterpart, is the official term Mehera dropped her body, or like Mehera passed away, or I mean, does anyone even know? I mean,
Joined her beloved.
yeah, Mehera went to her beloved. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Does anyone
I don't know.
have anything else to share? Rainy, good evening, Rainy. All right.
Well, I do believe the Mandali said that everybody else just dies. And I really like that. It sounds like Padre and Katie and type of talk, but everybody else just dies. Only Barber actually drops his body. Everyone else just gets dead or dies or whatever. But with Mehera, of course, we love to say she passed away. She wanted to pass away right at the beginning, remember? She was quite jealous of the dog that starved itself, that she wasn't allowed to do the same. And she went on for another 20 years, sharing magnificent stories and love for Baba, just as if she were one of us, which of course she was no such thing, but she behaved like she was. And beautiful humility and devotion, attention to detail, appreciating every single thing that might have manifested from Baba. Exquisite. And she passed away on May the 20th, and that's her day. And I don't care who else tries to claim that day, it isn't their day. That's Mehera's day, May 20th. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Rainey.
Rainey, can I ask you a question to further? So, Franny had a really great relationship with Mehera too. Mehera seemed to really take to Franny from your pictures that I see. Can you speak to that?
Mehera took to Laura, the other little Downs girl, the pretty Downs girl and the much brighter Downs girl. And Mehera was unconscious of that fact. And slowly, she went to give Franny a chocolate one day and Franny turned away. And I went to try and compensate, and Mehera said, "No, leave it to me. I know what I did and I'll repair it." And so from then on, because they both arrived, believe it or not, on the same day, unbeknownst to each other that we were going to arrive with the two Down syndrome girls on the same day, 2 years apart in age. And so, I mean, Laura, you know, she's trilingual, she's beautiful, she's high functioning, and Franny plods along like a little roly-poly and a tomboy. Laura's very feminine, Franny's a tomboy. And anyway, she did repair that relationship and she did make up for it. And but Franny was always a little bit cautious around her.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rainey.
So it just goes to show that we all have our stuff. No matter how holy anyone is, even Baba says he made a mistake. And mistakes are mistakes, and they're to be forgiven and forgotten when people make them. And I adored Mehera. I mean, it was ridiculous. I was non-compass around her. And she would, I'd gaze at something she'd ask me to gaze at till she snatched it out of my hand because I'd forget to ungaze, trying to see what she might see and so on. Everybody makes mistakes and everybody has ideas about things. And suddenly for this series, as Tony can tell you, of beautiful girls with disabilities suddenly appearing before the Mandali was a lot. They had not had a lot to do with children. And it was fascinating as parents of children with special needs to watch how it unfolded, how quickly the access became, how quickly it unfolded from a few errors in the beginning. And Mehera and Mani made sure of that. I remember some man being quite discriminatory about Franny. "What did she ever do in the former life that this happened?" And Mani said, "Oh, really? I think she was Queen Victoria." And this guy just about passed out. It's like his whole consciousness had to invert itself to think of this fact that, and then Mani saying, "And imagine that, she was just Queen Victoria and now she's a Baba lover." So the Mandali were, when they learned something, man, they were quick. They were just fantastic, Mehera included. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Does anyone else have any memories or stories or any thing of Mara they'd like to share? Tony, do you have something you'd like to share?
I am not at all good at controlling my face. um, I don't think I've shared this here. I think I shared this on Jeff's chat. A story about when Elena came back from the hospital last 2 weeks ago. It's an outrageous story. I'll tell you right now, it's an outrageous story. But twice in my life, I feel Baba came and engaged with me in a disguise. Once back in '82, and they all have good stories, and I won't go into detail, but as a taxi driver who, when my cab didn't show up, pulled up in front of in the UN traffic circle and said, get in, get in. I said, but this is not the number they gave, just come in. And he drove me home. It's a lot of interesting stuff. I even asked myself, is this Baba? Because he was something about him. But I convinced myself I was being crazy. But then after we had a long chat, he drove away. It hit me that it had been Baba. And last summer, decades after that occasion, we had some of you know my air conditioner saga, and the guy showed up to install our air conditioner, and he spent 8 hours working on it. And then when he turned it on, it instantly broke. But in that whole time, he was very quiet. He looked a bit like Forrest Whitaker, as Idi Amin, you know. But before he left, he looked at Baba's picture and he said, who is that? And I gave him some of my hedgy answers. And it was like he was not going to be satisfied until I said, we who follow him take him to be God in human form, the avatar, the Christ of this age. And then he was satisfied that I'd given him the correct answer. And he said something about talking about God to his clients where he works as a handyman, you know. And he left. And that feeling of bliss, same as with the taxi driver, just filled me. And I'm convinced it was Baba. And something like this happened with Merwan Mystery's a doctor in his hospital, but with a state trooper. Anyway, I did say to Baba after that, I said, if you're going to show up like this again, I said, let me know while it's happening. Let me know while it's happening, because, you know, and I can understand why he wouldn't, but still, that was my request. All right. So about 2 weeks or so ago, Elena stopped walking. She couldn't go, had impossible to go up or down the stairs. It reached that point. We finally had to take her to get an ambulance to take her to Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. She was there for 4 days. She was clearly in pain, but we didn't know what. They took x-rays, MRIs, her feet, her back, her spine. Couldn't find anything. And on the 4th day, she arose again, so to speak. She got up and she took 2 or 3 steps with a walker. And that was all that the hospital people needed. They said, okay, she can be released and we'll send a physical therapist. And so they were released, they were discharged at 1 p.m. And the ambulance was supposed to come at 2 because they had to have someone to bring her up the stairs because she couldn't mount the stairs. And nobody wanted it. And they finally found one ambulance company that they could come, but it wouldn't be till 10 p.m. And then the driver's not allowed to carry anyone. So it'd be just the one person there. And you'll have to help them or something. It was a bad situation. Out of the blue, an ambulance company calls in, like there's a board where these needs are announced, and says, you know, we're right in the neighborhood. We can be over in 10 minutes. And they say, well, yeah, but they need someone who can carry her up the stairs. Not a problem. We're happy to come. We're happy to do it. We're happy to carry them up. So at 3 o'clock, they left. Zeke tells me that the hospital people had given her a bunch of bags of, you know, hospital supplies, things that she could use, take home with Elena. She had her hands full. It was a young man and a young woman with the ambulance. And the young woman came and took the bags from Zeke. And Zeke was saying, no, no, I'll take. She said, no, we're here for you. You're not here for us. And after they left, that woman again went back and checked the room to make sure Zeke hadn't forgotten anything. This doesn't happen. I called up at some point. Zeke told me they were in the ambulance coming home, and it was taking a while. So I called to see if everything was okay, and Zeke had the speaker on. And again, this woman, I said, are you all right? What's taking so long? And the woman starts to explain, answering me very lovingly, that they just got on the highway and they were on their way. There was some traffic. And something about her just so charmed me. I don't know what, I could barely hear her voice, but I said, that's all right. It's rush hour. I just wanted to make sure everyone was okay. So they get here, and I walked to the driveway where they pulled in. And one of the first things this guy did was reach over and shake my hand. And I also shook hands with the young woman. And we talked a bit. And I said, at some point I said, my name's Tony. He said, oh, my father's name is Tony. And anyway, they got Elena prepped, and they had a chair to carry her up in. And the woman, who, she told me later her name was Evelyn, but so I'll just say Evelyn, wrapped Elena's feet. And I'm so touched by the energy of these two. They feel like one person. They're just nothing demonstrative, but it's nothing but love there, you know. And this woman Evelyn is wrapping Elena's feet so that they don't accidentally get bumped on the way carrying her up the stairs. And as she was doing it, it reminded me of Mehera. I thought, and I was passing thoughts, I didn't hold on to any of this, I haven't seen anyone but Mehera who held things and touched things with such love, like when she was at Baba's Samadhi. So then they brought her up, and we're in the center hall here, and there were a few exchanges and more handshaking. And then Evelyn saw this picture of Baba. Maybe I'll bring it over in a minute. It's a 4x6 print of a painting by Lynn Ott that belonged to B. Muller, Phyllis Ott, that belonged to B. Muller, and Zeke saw it when B's effects were being given to people. And she was told that it was a blessed, touch and blessed picture, and it feels like it. And this woman was immediately drawn to it, and they asked, who is that? And I somehow knew I could not go with any of the spiritual figure who lived in India, Christ-like figure. And I just said, this Christ-like figure who lived in India that we follow as the Christ. And no shock, no reaction, just a feeling of satisfaction from them that I had said this. They're going out, and he's gone down to the ambulance, and I follow Evelyn out, and I say something, and she responds. I said something about his name, and she said, I have a really nice name too. I said, what is it? And she says, Evelyn. I'm afraid I'm not communicating, but I'll just it's almost over, the story. So we get to the ambulance, and I'm kind of melting. There is something about these two. I'm not outwardly melting, but inwardly I'm kind of melting. There's something so extraordinary about them, and it wasn't like demonstrative, but it was less. And he reaches out again to shake my hand, and I shake his hand, and I didn't want to leave Evelyn out, and so I turned to shake her hand, and I immediately felt that she was saying, it's his hand you should be shaking. And none of this registered consciously until afterwards. And I said to them, I'm sorry you missed seeing Mehera when she's Elena, when she's at her best, because Elena was upset, she was raucous, she was shouting, she was, And Evelyn said, no, she's a very special soul. And she saw it and knew it. And Elena did not look like a special soul at that moment. And I finally said, I feel so moved and touched. I'm so happy to have met you. And I said, as you recognize a special soul, I recognize you too as a very special soul. And I think that's when the handshaking happened again. And I went back upstairs. And Baba had kind of let me know that this was, and I know it's outrageous what I'm going to say, but that this was Baba and Mehera. They were like one person. But he didn't let it register that I had registered that until they left. Because I ran back out. I was going to run back down to the ambulance, and they had already gone. But I can't stop smiling now for the last 2 weeks. And we have had one good thing after another happening in our lives, loving, wonderful things. And I know Elena was a close one of Baba's. I know this. And I know Baba loved this soul, and Mehera loved this soul. And when she was faced with having to spend another 10 hours or 8 hours in that hospital and not be taken home lovingly and with great care, it could be he manifested through those people, but I think it was just he donned that appearance to take care of Elena and bring her home and make sure she was safe there. And we kind of got the fringe benefit of being in their presence. So I never think of Mehera in the past tense, just as when I wouldn't think of Baba in the past tense. Mehera is, always is. I mean, once you get that, you never unget it, and so that's really, I can't, all of my other Mehera stories have kind of just disappeared for the moment. So that's what I.
And what did they look like, Tony? Were they like young?
They were young. His name was Luis. Her name was Evelyn. I'm gathering maybe sort of Hispanic, but they had smooth skin, just like that cab driver who drove me home, who was Indian, but he had a round face and smooth skin. They had smooth skin, but they were in the flow of life. I don't know how to quite describe it. There was nothing displaced by their being. It was just love. They were there out of love, for love, nothing but love, and to get Elena safely back home. I did feel really grateful, even before I consciously registered. I don't say that to people, that I feel really touched. I said, and you see that she is a special soul. I see that you are two special souls. I don't say that to people. But yeah, they were, in a way, they were beautiful. I mean, I wasn't thinking any of this at the time, but as I repicture them now, yeah. And Evelyn in particular had a little twinkle in her eye. It was like when she said, well, my name is pretty nice too. And it was like she's playing with me very lovingly, It's a hell of a damn crazy thing for me to say, but that's my experience. And we feel very grateful. And good things have been happening, loving things for us over the past 2 weeks. Just wonderful, wonderful things. So that vibration is carrying.
Thank you, Tony. Jay Baba.
Thank you.
All right. I see Rainey has her hand up. Rainey, yes.
I just wanted to say something that Tony expressed, that Baba and Mehera haven't gone anywhere. Baba's holding this hand and Mehera's holding this hand. They're beside each one of us that love them all the time. Jai Baba.
Jay Baba. Thank you, Rainey. And Jeff, do you have any stories or anything you'd like to share about Mehera? You want to unmute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You asked me if I do that one song.
Yes. Yeah. If it's handy,
Okay.
it's such a great song.
Maybe later on. I happened to be in India when Mehera passed on, but I can share that at some point. But so this is a song. It's an Eva Cassidy song, which I changed the words to and made it into a song of Mehera singing to Baba. And the first two verses start out with Mehera and the women at Lower Mehrabad back in the early 1920s, before Baba had begun his silence. There was no electricity there. A very intimate life with the 4 women and maybe a dozen of the men mandali. That's the first 2 verses. And then the last verse takes place at this is how I see it. And the last verse takes place at Merazad with Mehera after Baba has dropped his body. And she's kind of gazing out over to the western sky, to the sunset. But so I'm going to give it a shot. So it would be nice if Rainey could sing this, a woman singing to Baba, but here it is. And Larry Green has, I asked him just to play it on the piano, so here goes. Evenings in autumn, the glowing fire lights up your face in orange and gold. I see your sweet smile shine through the darkness. Its lines are etched in my memory, so I'd know you by heart, so I'd know you by heart. Mornings in springtime, sharing love's secrets, we'd walk until the morning was gone. We were like sweethearts, laughing for hours. The love you gave me lives on and on, 'cause I know you by heart. I still hear your voice on cool monsoon nights, whispering like the wind. Oh, oh, oh. You left in winter, the leaves were turning. I gazed on sunsets of orange and gold. I see your sweet smile, I hear you laughing. You're still here beside me every day, 'cause I know you by heart, 'cause I know you by heart. Let's see here.
Jay Baba. Thank you, Jeff.
Is that audible all right?
Yes. Sounded really good.
Never know quite whether this thing works.
What a great song. Thank you, Jeff. Do you have any other stories?
I have a question for Jeff to tell us. So you're not the only one who said that this year that Mehera seemed to be more front and center than she's ever been. You told the story about going to India this last time.
Mm-hmm.
Can I cajole you into telling that story again?
Okay. Excuse me. About 3 weeks before I went to India, I had kind of a dream vision or whatever of Mehera. I've had a few dreams of Mehera, but this one was like really real. And I find myself kind of standing off the side, and Mehera's about 15 feet away sitting at a bench. And she's got on her lap something like a photo album or something that she's very interested in, very enthusiastic about. And she motions me over to come around and sit next to her. Well, I come around the front of the bench, and the bench is so narrow. And she indicates for me to sit down, and I sit down, and I'm only about like 1 inch away from her. And she's like very kind of enthusiastic and cavalier, and I'm sitting there trying to not be, not to touch her. And I mean, we're only about 1 inch apart. And so I'm only half aware of what she's showing me, and the other half I'm trying to avoid, touching her. And this goes on for a while, and then I feel this tap on my shoulder. I mean, an actual physical tap. I'm thinking, oh my God, Baba, she's, we've touched. And I'm feeling like, oh my God, I should have been more careful, but there's nothing I could do about it. And then she continues looking at this album, and I'm still continuing to try to avoid touching her. And then she reaches over and touches me in my heart, and I wake up. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what was that? Geez. I didn't know what to make of that, but the 3 weeks later, I was on my way to India, and after I got settled in the plane, and I've been to India more than 50 times, and I always have Baba there with me in a special way, but now Mehera and Baba are there together. Now I had always had Mehera in a special place, but not with Baba, but here she is. She's right there in front of the eye of my heart with Baba. And Mehera's basically telling me, not touching me pertained to when I was physically on earth. It doesn't pertain now. You can embrace me now. So I thought, oh my God. So I had Baba and Mehera there before me the entire time, and even to this moment. It's Baba and Mehera kind of watching, not just watching me, watching all of us. That's what I experience. And and Adi had said back in the 70s, when I was, he was an expert on God Speaks, and in God Speaks, Baba talks about the roles around the mandali. There's the role of Peter, there's a role of John, and of Mary, Martha, and everything. And each Advent, a different person plays those roles. But Adi surprised us and shocked us and himself, because Baba told him that Mehera is always the same one. And I didn't hear, I just took that as gospel, even though I had read God Speaks. I took that as gospel, and I never heard anything to the contrary. So I always felt that Mehera is always with Baba. And recently, Mehera Bloom told me that Mehera had told Lori, her mother, who is very close with Mehera, that she's with Baba each time he comes. And also, Viola Marx was just here, and Mehera had said that she had always been a woman. So, so that's very unusual. You don't have to go through this male-female thing and all the variations off of that. I always felt that Mehera was divine. I knew that. I mean, I never met anyone like her. The pure intention and everything, even though she was very natural and even shy, but a kind of divine shyness, you might say, but she was very shy in some ways, but very approachable. And she never wanted anyone revering her or anything like that. She preferred you just were yourself with her. But I do feel like that she is emerging now after many years of as one of the of being with Baba in people's devotion, especially the women in India. They look upon Baba and Mehera together rather than in separate places, which I had done. So anyway, that it broke that inhibition because we weren't supposed to touch Mehera, so I just had projected that on into her present place. Anyway, that's
Thank you, Jeff.
yeah.
So in other words, like the soul of the avatar, like Mara's soul or whatnot would come back probably like when the next avatar comes back, more than likely.
She said I'm there each time he comes.
That's awesome. It's pretty special. Almost
But
a monologue.
I don't think that could be known during her lifetime because they would have had to have a bodyguard around her,
Oh yeah.
protect
Makes
her.
sense.
But
That's why
anyway,
she had to keep quiet during her lifetime.
well, everybody wanted to touch her. They would be crazy.
Oh yeah. That
So-
makes sense. Or bow down to her like they did Baba.
Yeah,
Okay. That
they
makes
had a
sense.
hard enough time, even though this wasn't known. They had a hard enough time protecting Mehera. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
Thank you, Jeff.
sure.
And Marsha, good evening, Marsha. Marsha, you want to click on mute? Good evening, Marsha and Gidget.
Yeah, she's barking. So anyway, the last couple days when I was in the Hermitage in my last visit, I had a picture of Baba and Mehera on the window, and then it flashed to me Mehera Baba, and I knew that when he comes again in the next 700 years, they'll both be in one. I don't know where that came from, but I think it came from Baba. But it's just, who knows? That was a flash I had. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only met Mani, but I didn't meet Mehera. But I slept in the guest house many times and was in her room, in her bed, and it was pretty special. That cabin felt like if you go rock in the hammock on the porch and then go to bed, the whole guest house felt like it was Noah's Ark rocking. It was really weird. Anyway, that's special.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marsha. All right, and Josh.
Yeah, there's lots of really interesting stuff going on with her. Like, I can't remember where, but I remember someone, look this up to get the true the reference, but I think she was saying that Mehera told her once that, when someone would pray to, the Christian Mother Mary, or she'd receive those prayers, and she'd hear those voices, she's a very special soul for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Josh. I did meet Mehera when I was 7 years old. I don't remember that much in detail. 7's so young, but I did go to India in November 1988, my first time there. And yes, Rainey and her daughter Franny were there as well. That trip, it was around Thanksgiving time in 1988. And I I remember like bits and pieces. I remember like asking my mom like which one was Mehera, because I heard of Mehera so much like leading up to that trip, and of course in America, and I was so excited to see Mehera. I remember a little bit like I played like a plastic toy guitar from Mehera, and she told my mom to get me guitar lessons when I went back to the States, which my parents did, and she told me like to never stop playing guitar, to always keep playing music and guitar and whatnot, which I have. And I did have tea with Mehera. I don't remember that much like about having tea with Mehera, but I do remember I think Mehera was in the middle of the table, and I think I was like sort of close by her, but maybe opposite, I think. And I remember she was very soft spoken, very gentle, very beautiful, and just very natural. And sometimes I wish I could have been like older, but then I guess if I was older, I might not have been able to meet Mehera though, and like to spend the time with Mehera that I did get to spend. So But I love seeing her videos, and I love just reading about her and hearing about her like informally like this. And Rainey.
Yes, because you were so young, you could go to the tea.
Yes. Yes.
So a couple of things come to mind with Mehera always being female. Yes, we heard that many times. Mehera always considering herself the consort of each avatar. And one day after, and of course, you know, the Mary we talk about with Jesus is Mary Magdalene. The consort's Mary Magdalene. It's not his mother, of course. I always like to clarify that. And Mehera would get quite annoyed when people would think she had been Mary the mother. She was Mary the consort. But Mehera once then told the story, broke into this story of she'd always been the consort of each avatar of what I call Mary, Mehera, Mehera. And so Mary, Mehera, when Mehera was really little, she was called Mehera, and it was pronounced correctly by the Parsi community. And then when she went to be with a Pasni with her mother, she was called Mira because they couldn't quite pronounce Mehera properly. Then when they went to live in Goa, she was called Mary. And then when she came back to Baba, she was Mehera again. So she had this this delight in telling us this story of being Mary, Mira, and Mehera. We wrote a play about it, in fact, called Because of Love, and put it on. It was a lot of fun. And also, you find in a lot of Brabazon work references, very unusual references to Mehera. And I remember when the men were allowed to actually come round and finally namaste to her and look at her, he could not. He was in such the habit of not looking at her, he could not make his eyes come up to look at her. So they were so disciplined about Mehera. But he also says in one song, well, we have this beautiful prayer that Mani gave us, beloved Mehera prayer. Very unusual things around Mehera that in her lifetime kind of didn't come up until after she passed. But Francis, in an old poem here, brings up something very unusual. Among all the poets, even most unusual. And it happens to be in the book of letters by Jimmy Mystery. And it's called I Sing of You, Mehera. And it was given to her for one of her birthdays. But in it, Francis says, before God even began the creation, he created Mehera. He created her to mirror to him his love so that he would know his own love ever anew. Her ancientness is, when you're around her, you feel like a child all the time. Even the elderly, I watched them, they were like little children, her ancientness, and yet her youthfulness in her behavior. It was a magic experience. And one can only qualify it when it's gone. You know how it is. You can piece these things together. Jai Baba.
Hey, Rainey, can you give that line from Francis again?
Well, it's in the poem I Sing of You, Mehera. It's in the Jimmy Mystery Letters book 2, I believe. I usually document everything here, right? It must be here somewhere amongst the
I
chords.
sing of you.
I
Mehera?
sing of you, Mehera, the beloved of the
Oh.
beloved of all mankind.
Oh,
The beloved of the beloved of all mankind. But the lines that are unique in the history of poetry about Aishas or Marys or any of them is, before he began the creation, the beloved created you to mirror to him his love so that he would know it ever anew, which is interesting because this is the end of an avataric cycle too, when her name is Mehera. And it's just a culmination, I suppose, of Francis's thought. He made the earth as an arbor for your pleasure and shade, and he ordered the stars to be your escort and the moon to be your maid. He created the sun and rain to keep the earth always fair and green. bearing to each season choicest fruits and flowers for you, his chosen queen. The beloved, because of a whim, caused the whole creation to be. And in a one-word poem, he contained it. And you are its melody, Mehera.
Oh, beautiful.
It's a stunning, tucked away poem, and it's to melody on this CD, which took a lot of courage at the time to bring out. You think you know more than everyone else, but it's put to a really probably one of the best melodies I ever wrote, and it's the third track on the Divine Rememberer.
Mm.
But the poem itself it's a lifetime study.
You know, one thing we heard, I don't know if, one thing we heard recently, maybe you heard also, but Heather was walking with Mehera one day, and Mehera said to her, "Do you think I'll be born into a Baba family my next life?" And Heather said, "I don't think you have to worry about that." And and Mehera said, you know, Mehera said that I asked Mehera Goer this morning, and she said the same thing. Can you imagine the humility of, am I going to be born into a Baba family? I mean, the beloved of the beloved with no self-importance as we know it, you know. How magnificent. Anyway.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Rainey. All right. We have Sri. Hey, Sri, good evening. Jai Baba.
Hi everyone, Jai Baba. So growing up, I didn't know about Baba, but I did love Krishna, and obviously the stories of Radha Krishna are very famous. They were always really special to me because growing up, and this is kind of like a stereotype, I will say, but in a lot of like Indian immigrant families, love isn't really something that's talked about. And growing up, like your parents love you a lot, but like I love you isn't a thing that you say to your parents on the daily. And so I always had like a weird, I don't think I truly like knew what it was for a while. But then I remember like the only connection I had to it was what I intuitively felt was between Radha and Krishna. But for the longest time, I always just thought like I knew it was this unconditional love to the millionth power, but I always just thought like, well, God came down as a male, and so men and women, like they get married, and so he had a female consort. I never knew until reading about Baba and getting to know him that the avatar doesn't do anything just for the sake of doing it. And hearing him talk about him literally him needing Mehera to continue his own breath. I can't even explain how it makes me feel. It's like a feeling of wonder, but also just like I won't ever understand it fully, obviously. But it's something that's always really touched me. And the time I felt most unconditionally loved in my life was when I went to the Samadhi and I just started crying because I didn't know what I was feeling. But I just knew that it was love, and it was not something I had ever felt before in that way. And I think about that feeling, and it was like the greatest thing I've ever felt. And I can't even imagine what Mehera must have felt for Baba, because it was that times infinity. And I don't know why I'm crying right now, but the love between Radha and Krishna never made perfect sense to me in like I knew of the power of it, but I didn't know why it existed. And I now know because of Meher that Krishna needed Radha to live and to do his work. And it's, I think, unfortunate sometimes in India, you only ever hear of Krishna, and in some parts of India, Radha and Krishna are prayed together as one deity, but in a lot of other parts of India, it's just Krishna, or same thing with Ram, it's just Ram. And people don't pray to Sita, but the realization that even the avatar needs someone to help him was something that only made sense to me after hearing Baba's talk about Mehera and talk about the purpose of her existence here. And one of my favorite pictures of Baba in general is this one, where some of the followers or the devotees asked him and Mehera to dress up as Radha and Krishna. Well, Jeff, I love that one too, but this one always makes me very emotional because you can see that look in her eyes. It's pure amazement and pure admiration, and it's just the purest form of love. And when we think of love for not like regular humans, there's always like when you think about like a partner in life, for people who aren't enlightened, there's always going to be some portion of lust in that love. But for them, it was just 100% innocent and just divine love. And that's what you see with Radha, Krishna, and Ram, and Sita, and Jesus and Mary. And I just think it's a beautiful thing that religions especially don't talk about as much. And I think they should.
Thank you, Shri. Well, very well said. I agree with you as well. All right, Tony.
Yes. Something Jeff said reminded me of this. I mentioned this cab driver who drove me home from the UN as my short-term contract there was ending. And as a result of that meeting, by the way, I was kept on. My nature changed. I was kept on at the UN and was there for 30 years. But this driver and I we wound up having a long talk as he was driving me home. And then he pulled up across from my apartment, turned off the car, and we continued having a talk. And so many of the things he said, when Baba hit me like a ton of bricks that it had been him afterwards when I was home a half hour later. But so many of the things he had said took on a whole other level of meaning, and knowing that this was Baba. And at some point, he said, I pick up anyone, I take them anywhere they want to go. And I said, you're from India? And he said, yeah. He said, my family is very wealthy. Oh, my family is so wealthy. And he mentioned Kohinoor, which is like this famous diamond. And he said, and they are so beautiful. My family in India is so beautiful. He said, if they knew, and confiding in me, he said, if they knew I was doing this, like driving as a taxi cab in New York, if they knew I was doing this, they would make me come home immediately so I don't tell them. And in thinking that through after I knew, it was like I couldn't help but think of Mehera, because how Mehera would instantly say, yes, Baba, come back now. Anyway, that's all. That's all.
Thank you, Tony. Beautiful. Does anyone else have any shares? Any shares about Mehera? Diane, Tara, do you have anything to share at all? Rainey, do you have any songs? I'm
Yes,
sure.
Richard has his hand up. Richard Sander. I'll do a song.
Yes, you do, Richard. And then after Richard, Rainey, I would love to hear a song. I'm guessing you probably played music from Mehera. I'd love to hear a song that Mehera liked that you played. But yep, go ahead, Richard.
I was determined not to say anything this meeting, and precisely because what little snippet of time I had in Mehera's presence was nothing compared to so many of you. When I was young, growing up with the German Catholic Mass and confession and all this other stuff, my dad's mother was a very, very devout Catholic woman. And if you take a whole family with all these sisters and everything, you get your portion of Mother Mary, flat out. I mean, you're going to get it. And I did. And for me, the prayers, Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. The prayers actually were very vivid. They were, I don't know if I should use the word real, because before Meher Baba, I didn't know that God alone is real. But so I always assumed naturally that God had Jesus and there was Mary, I mean, just go, that's the way it is, it's like meatballs and spaghetti. But anyway, but other than that, so I always found her to be God's compassion. For me, Mary was God's compassion. So I'd have no problem relating to who Mehera is, except that, to be frank, until I saw the pictures that Shri held up, there's a series of those, I have one on my wall. Till I saw that, I didn't realize how absolutely personal that relationship truly was. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay Baba. And Jeff, Rainey had a question in the chat. Jeff, is your email Baba Jeff's? What's your email? I can't think of it right now.
Oh, I sent it to him. Thanks.
Oh, did you?
Good.
Okay, good.
Thank you
Okay.
for that, because I know a lot of people who really have the highest regard in their life for Mehera and Baba, and that poem is magnificent.
Yes.
Thank you, really.
Thank you for reading that poem. And so Francis Robertson wrote that poem?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, he was a good poet.
He was God's poet.
That's right, he was God's poet.
Resident poet, essayist, writer.
That's right. God's poet, what a title. Rainey, do you have any songs that you like sang from Mehera?
Yeah, well, a song I sang for Mehera. Okay, a lot of them are post Mehera, but there's a song I sang for Mehera that was 1977. It was very early to sing a Mehera song, and it's the song where you see that photograph and she's touching my face in that photograph, which I think is my there's gazing, Tony. Here it is. I'll see if I can. This is the wrong space for this, but we'll see how I go. Let me just try and use something here. Impossible. A lot of these songs are on the Mehera, the Divine Rememberer CD, but this was the first one I wrote in 1977, and it was a dream. Two of my Mehera songs are dreams, and one is a vision of her. And can I fit? I will see. Okay. My heart wept for Mehera. I saw her one night sitting before me with tears flowing down her cheeks. I praised to her there in my dream, as we both sat there facing each other. Then I went on dreaming that with her precious tears we made gardens, deserts, and grew flowers wherever they fell. Then made so beautiful through flowers, touching each one. until he standing beside sweet Mehera, where he reached out to her gently, and they faded from sight together.
Rainey, did you have original sound on?
Oh no, was it playing up? Sorry.
Yeah, I wonder if you would be willing to sing it again because it came out kind of choppy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If that's all right with everyone.
Also where I
Yeah,
am.
yes, please.
Just a minute. Bill, could you bring that stool in? I think I need to sit on this stool and have a music stand. Just here, and I can put the song up on it. Thank you very much. Okay. My heart wept for Mehera. I saw her one night, sitting before me with tears flowing down her cheeks. I cried as I sang to her there in my dream, as we both sat there facing each other. Then I went on dreaming that with her precious tears we made gardens and deserts and grew flowers wherever they fell. Then Mehera came into the garden, so beautiful. I walked through the flowers, touching each one, until he was standing beside sweet Mehera, where he reached out to her gently, and they faded from sight together. Hand in hand, forever together, Mehera and Mehera.
Ray Baba, so beautiful.
At the time, to have a dream like this, Mehera's 77. Mehera at this point is quite confident and has come into her own. She's not the shy person of 72, 73 when we first met her. And she felt this was like futuristic. This was an amazing thought that all these gardens, all this, with that Baba was going to come and take her hand and they'd go off together. But I dreamt the whole thing and I woke myself up and I taped it.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I knew, even in a dream state, that this was quite an unusual song. And of course, you would do all your new songs, and I haven't done it for years. And then she would always ask for, of course, this is a funny story, she'd always ask for the melody of Londonderry Air, which got to be the words of Danny Boy with the words by Francis Brabazon. And we had a thing where if music would get too intense, because some of this folk music with all these twanging guitars would be very intense for the women, she would give me this one nod, and that was to start up singing "The dawn light breaks against my grief of stubborn days," and that was the cue to sing that song and sort of bring it down to something quieter and so on. But there was another song that you might find very interesting here, and it was a birthday present for me in 73-ish, I guess, from Francis. From Francis here in his writing. My dear Rainey, here are some words which could go to Golden Slumber's tune. Can I even read this? The words Baba are on a triplet, indicated by the number 3 over the word Baba. And I have deleted some of the verses and chorus, and you will sing it like a lullaby with the chorus, and just get rid of the chorus and just sing 3 straight verses with All My Love, Francis. But it has a little side note down here, and it meant I was too scared to sing it forever and a day. It is, as such, was it were, as if being sung by Mehera. How to do this? You must cry for her. Sure, okay. Baba, beloved, Baba, soul of my soul and Savior, that which I sigh inwardly cry, that is my heart song to you. Where are the days when you were here, filling our hearts with joy and cheer? That which I sigh inwardly cry, that is my heart song to you. Those were the times when you, dear one, were as an ever-present sun. That which I sigh inwardly cry, that is my heart song to you.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Thank you, Rainey.
And though, once Mehera passed, as Jeff was saying here, she just manifested everywhere. She just appeared everywhere. She just showed her confidence and that which she was born to be, that which she is, really. And one night I was sitting right here and I heard these slippers go across the hallway. The exact sound of Mehera's sapats, her little velvet slippers without the backs that would scrape across the stone porch as she would shuffle out and come and sit down. And she walked from the hallway here into Franny's room there. And I knew straight away what it was. I hear your footfall, but they tell me that it's no longer audible. Oh, but Mehera, I heard your footfall. I hear your bell-like laughter, but they tell me that it's no longer here. Oh, but Mehera, I heard your laughter. I hear your bangles jingling, but they tell me those subtle colors are gone. Oh, but Mehera, I heard your bangles. Those memories no time span ever can erase. Your beauty, devotion, nothing can replace, nothing will erase, nothing can replace, nothing will erase. I hear your footfall, longer audible. Oh, bugbearer, I heard your full thought. Those memories no time span ever can erase. Your beauty, devotion, nothing can replace, nothing will erase, nothing can replace, nothing will erase.
J Papa.
Jay Baba. She's
you,
always
Rainey.
here.
Yes, Mehera is always with us.
I love your voice, Rainey. It's so distinct and clear, the tone quality.
Jay Baba.
Thank you. And I guess I'll play just a little bit of guitar, just improv guitar, since this program is from Mehera. So this is just all made up on the spot here. All right, J Papa. Jeff, looks like you have your hand up, Mr. Wolverton.
You're muted, Jeff.
I was saying, I guess we're coming to the end, but I thought I would share a little bit about. I happened to be there when Mehera passed on in India, like in the fall of '88. When I came to the end of my pilgrimage in November, Erich told me to come back on March 15th. Now that was kind of unusual, and I mean, I'm working here at the center. So I said yes, I would come. So I arrived at March 15th, and somehow they'd asked Ted if he needed some help. So I wound up, working on the dome at the kind of restoring the top of the dome, and working away. I mean, it was very, very hot, and it's incredible. And but anyway, I was working for about maybe a month or something on the tomb, and And then word came that the women were going to go to Pune for 3 weeks for their yearly vacation. And we were invited. This was in the summer months, so there were probably less than 10 people there, because this was after the pilgrim season. So, maybe 8 or 10 people at most. But so we were invited out to Merazad to, say goodbye to the women before they went to Pune for their 3-week vacation. And so they didn't tell us that Mehera was ill at all. At least I didn't know. I'm sure some people did, but I don't think they wanted to get out because people would have shown up at Merazad, wanting to have one last glimpse. So Mehera was on the porch there in the main house, and just a handful of us stood there, and looking at Mehera, and we wished them well, a nice vacation, and Mehera was very gracious. Like I say, she was sitting there. I did not pick up that she was ill at all. She was her usual gracious self from my eyes. In fact, often when she would look at me, just a glance from her, sometimes my whole body would glow. Just the love in her glances. But anyway, so before I left, Meru took me aside and said that she wanted that whole porch renovated, the walls. And so I had like 3 weeks to do it. So I came out to Merazad and started kind of taking the wall down, and boy, it was made from mud and barely held. It would require an incredible amount of caulking. I was working madly trying to get it done before the women came. And so I did on the last day with some help from people. But anyway, so I went back to Mehrabad. I don't know how long it was. The women came back to Merazad, and then one day I'm having lunch at Lower Mehrabad behind Mandalay Hall there in a little place, and this car comes racing in back behind, the Mandalay Hall, and it's Jal Dastur. He comes down, he's screaming, Mehera's gone to Baba, Mehera's gone to Baba, Mehera's gone to Baba, and just turns around and drives off, kind of madly. He was going wherever he could to spread the news. And so there were a few of us, and we got together and tried to, like I say, it was a shock. I was not expecting it. But so we got together and figured out who was going to do what. Now, Alan, because there were going to be hundreds of people coming the next day. And so, Alan Wagner was, going to be responsible for the food. Ted had various things to do up on the hill. They asked me to help prepare Mehera's grave. It had long in advance, it had been, it was solid rock, so they had cut down 6 feet in this rock for her grave in the past, and then they filled it up so that it was ready whenever she passed on. So the villagers had taken the earth out of there, but it was kind of just rubble and everything. So I kind of cleaned the area up, and I went down in the grave site and tried to smooth it out so when the casket was lowered, it would be a solid, level surface and everything. So I was there for hours trying to make it look nice. And then word came that we could go out to Merazad to see Mehera's body there. And so there were 3 of us that headed out. I think it was Bob Street. Oh God, I forgot. Anyway, we headed out in these huge Rajdoot motorcycles. And as we're heading out, the sun is setting in the west, and in the east, a full moon is coming up, just as the sun is setting. Apparently, that's what happened when Buddha was born, his moment of enlightenment, and when he died, that same phenomenon. So we're heading off toward Merazad, the 16 miles, heading right into the moon, you might say. And we, and it's, and then when we get out there toward there's the Rungabad Road, and we're about to cut off to the Pimplegown Road, which is several miles from Merazad. We turn off, and the whole countryside was so serene. It was like, to me, I felt this is like it must have been when Jesus was born, Christmas morning. I mean, it was the serenity, the peace, the hallowedness, the sacredness. So I'm heading down that Pimplegown Road, and as I'm going, it's like I'm dissolving. Is so rarefied, and like this huge motorcycle is almost like it's going to dissolve in this atmosphere. We head down the approach road eventually, and we come in, and we're told to come into Mandalay Hall. So we come in there not knowing what to expect, and there's Mara's coffin before Baba's chair in Mandalay Hall, open. I look at her and I kind of gasp because she looked like she was just sleeping, and she looked like she was. I mean, the figure, the age that came to me, she looked like she was just 28 years old. She was in her 80s, but she looked so young, and we were just with her, weeks before, and she was in her 80s, and here was this young woman, and like I say, it was like she was alive, and there were just, like I say, a few of us, and rather than singing the Baba songs, we sang these old love songs, from Johnny Mathis, or the songs like "You Are the Promised Kiss of Springtime that makes the lonely winter seem long." That songs like that. It's not the pale moon that excites me, that thrills and delights me, oh no. It's just the nearness of you. I mean, and all these songs suddenly, you saw the deeper love that these songs actually embody. Oh, it was really something. But anyway, we were there for a while. I have no idea how I got back that evening to Meherabad. I have no recollection. But anyway, so then the next day, people started coming from all over, Pune, Mumbai, all the surrounding areas. And Mara's coffin was up on that platform near the tomb, and people came up and paid respects. And, well, there's more I could say, but I think it's getting kind of late. Anyway, one thing, though, that people were seeing, back then there was a photograph in the tomb, and people were seeing Baba's face turn to Mara's face, back to Baba's face, to Mara's face. I never heard that. I've been there when the other Mandalay passed on. That never happened. But they were just, Mara was changing into Baba, and Baba was changing to Mara, back and forth. And the open grave there, there were just a handful of it, so we lowered her in the grave, and Mani came by with some of the earth from when Baba was buried, and then people started throwing flowers in. Flowers, thousands and thousands of flowers that filled up the whole grave. 6 feet of, flowers all the way up. And then the earth, there were two lines that formed. There was the mound of the soil was maybe 25 or 30 feet away, and the Baba's nephews, Sorab and Rustam, filled up these buckets, and they would were passed down from one to another, and then we would dump them over the coffin, and they would go up. Another line would take the gamelas or the buckets back, and so in about 45 minutes, it was filled up, and Sorab and Rustam were singing this really powerful chant with Baba's name and everything. I'd never heard it before, but everybody got into singing it. And it was really something. And when I was there, I was thinking, what am I doing here? It was so much larger than I could comprehend. I mean, I felt I had just a keyhole awareness of something that was so immense happening. It was way larger than I could ever comprehend, you know. So, and then the hill was vacated, and everybody went down, and I guess Alan had food for everybody. But very poignant.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So I think we should end if everybody would like to, unless anyone has something else they'd like to share, with the beloved God prayer to end this Zoom Thursday night late night chat meeting. Does anyone else have any other thing they'd like to share with Mehera? What a great descriptive note to end it with, Jeff. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who joined us tonight and shared and gave their hearts out. So if everybody would like to take themselves off mute, this is my favorite Baba prayer. It's easy to remember too. Beloved God,
God,
Help us all
all
To
to
love
love
you
you
love you
more and
more and more
and
and
more and
more
more
and
more,
more.
and
yet
yet
Till we
more
become
till we
worthy
till
become
we
worthy
become
of
worthy
union with you.
and help us
Help us
all
all
help us
hold
all
fast
until the very
Baba's
Baba's
Dhamma
Daman
Jacob.
till the very end.
Avatar,
Baba
EJ.
Era
Bar
Baba
Baba EJ.
Baba.
Har Meher Baba
Baba
Ki Jai.
Jai.
Mehera Meher Baba Ki Jai.
I don't know how he came. Could I just